Chapter 5. The anger was just grief in disguise. I wasn't mad at the world. I was mourning what I never got. People always told me I had an anger problem. It became almost like my unofficial nickname. Aggressive, hot-tempered, always ready to fight. Even when nothing obvious had gone wrong. That was the label. That was the verdict. And for years I believed it. But the truth? No one ever stopped to ask why. They didn't ask why my jaw stayed locked from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep. They didn't wonder why my fists were tense, even at rest, like I was always bracing for impact. They didn't notice that I got agitated when things were too quiet, because silence in my world had never been safety, only the calm before something bad. They just saw the surface, and surfaces are easy to judge. I wasn't angry at the world. I was grieving. Not the kind of grief people understand, not the loss of someone you loved, not a funeral you can point to. My grief was invisible. It was a slow drip in the soul, the kind you carry for so long it becomes part of your breathing. I was grieving the love I never received, the protection I never had, the safety I didn't grow up with. I mourned the hugs I longed for but never got, the apologies that never came, the father who didn't show up, the mother who never really saw the person I was inside, only the behavior that made her job harder. That grief didn't come out in tears. It came out in rage. That's the thing about anger. It's a mask. It's the armor your mind builds when sadness feels too raw, too dangerous to show. Anger builds walls when your soul doesn't know how to feel safe. It gives you the illusion of control when the world has made you feel powerless. So I wore it proudly. I became the don't mess with me guy. The one whose silence in a room was almost louder than his words. I learned to use my tone and my body language to keep people in check. I sharpened sarcasm into a blade I could pull out whenever I needed distance. And when distance didn't work, I raised my voice. Because raising my voice kept me from breaking down. Deep inside, crying felt like a luxury. And in my world, luxury got you hurt. Especially when you grow up in a place where survival depends on being untouchable. What no one tells you is that anger is just grief that never got to finish its funeral. It's the scream that was silenced in your throat. It's the child who wanted to be held but got punished instead. It's the man who lost everything but was told to get over it. It's the woman who was violated and told to stay quiet. It's the addict who buried memory after memory just to keep functioning. Anger is the smoke signal of a soul on fire, and I was burning. I punched walls instead of pillows. I slammed doors instead of opening up conversations. I fought strangers when I should have been fighting my own silence. I ghosted people I loved because I didn't know how to say, I feel abandoned and I don't know how to ask you to stay. I acted like I didn't care, when in reality, I cared so deeply it terrified me. I didn't know how to grieve, so anger became my translator. One day, someone asked me, "What are you so mad about?" I didn't hesitate. I started listing everything, the betrayals, the situations where I felt used, the times people promised things and vanished, the ways life had chewed me up and spat me out. Halfway through my rant, my voice cracked. Not because the list was too long, but because I realized it wasn't really about them. It was about me. I was angry at myself for staying quiet when I should have spoken, for letting things slide that cut me to the bone, for not standing up for myself when it mattered most, for pretending to be okay when I was drowning inside. And that's when it hit me. What I thought was anger was actually loss. Loss of years pretending I was fine. Loss of relationships because I couldn't communicate without attacking. Loss of peace because I had buried my emotions so deep I forgot how to feel joy. I thought I was mad at the world, but I was really mourning the parts of me that never got to exist. The soft version, the trusting version, the boy who just wanted to be held, not hardened. That realization brought me to my knees, not because I was weak, but because I was carrying a weight that didn't belong to me anymore. I wasn't loud because I wanted attention. I was loud because I didn't know any other way to cry. When I finally stopped to listen, my grief whispered truths I had ignored for decades. I miss what I never had. I wanted to be chosen. I wanted someone to fight for me. Those whispers didn't hurt the way anger did. They hurt differently, a deep, steady ache instead of a stabbing wound. And in that ache, something softened. I stopped fighting my anger. I started holding my grief. But here's the thing about finally letting grief speak. Once it starts talking, it doesn't just tell you what you lost. It tells you what's still missing, and that's where the real danger and the real healing began. Once grief starts talking, it doesn't care that you have work in the morning. It doesn't care that you've built an entire personality around being the strong one. It doesn't care that you've spent years keeping your emotions in check so no one could use them against you. Grief is rude like that. It shows up in the middle of your day, in a smell, a song, a certain look someone gives you, and suddenly your chest feels like it's cracking open. I began noticing it everywhere. In the way I tensed when someone raised their voice, not because I thought they'd hit me, but because somewhere deep in my nervous system, I was 5 years old again. In the way my throat tightened when people said, "I'm proud of you," because I didn't know how to receive something I'd craved my whole life but rarely heard. In the way I pulled back from kindness because being cared for felt suspicious. Anger had been a filter I viewed the world through. It distorted everything. When someone looked at me too long, I assumed they were challenging me. When someone disagreed, I assumed they were attacking. When someone said, "I need to talk to you," I assumed it was bad news. Now that filter was cracking, and what was underneath was raw. The first problem with letting grief in is that it doesn't just open the door to sadness, it also opens the door to fear. I had built a fortress of anger for a reason. It kept me safe. It told people to keep their distance. It kept me from looking vulnerable in a world that wasn't always safe for soft hearts. When you take those walls down, you feel naked, exposed, like someone could walk in at any moment and crush you without even meaning to. So every time I felt grief rising, my first instinct was to shut it back down. Tighten the jaw, square the shoulders, go cold. I didn't realize I was still doing the same thing I had done my whole life, protecting the wound instead of healing it. I knew I had to start doing something different, so I started asking myself questions I had avoided for decades. What am I really upset about? When did I first feel this exact feeling? Who hurt me that I never got to grieve? What did I need back then that I'm still searching for now? These questions were like keys to old locked doors in my memory. Behind each door was a scene I thought I had moved on from, but had really just shoved into a dark corner. The day my father didn't show up. The night I sat alone in my room, hoping my mother would notice I hadn't eaten. The friend who stopped talking to me with no explanation. The first time I was humiliated in public and everyone laughed. These weren't just memories, they were unfinished goodbyes. I had never said goodbye to the version of me that believed he was lovable without earning it. I had never said goodbye to the boy who thought people stayed just because they cared. I had never said goodbye to the dream that maybe my family would someday apologize. Grief forced me to face the truth. Some things you can't fix. Some people will never give you the closure you deserve. And if you don't give yourself permission to grieve that, you'll stay stuck in anger forever. So I started letting it speak, not in a neat, controlled way, but in messy, unexpected bursts. One night, I was sitting in my car, scrolling on my phone, when a song from my childhood came on the radio. I don't even remember what the song was. All I remember is that it cracked me open. Tears came without warning. I wasn't crying for the song itself. I was crying for the boy who had listened to that song alone in his bedroom, wondering why love felt like something other people got to have. Sometimes grief didn't come out as tears at all. Sometimes it came as exhaustion, where I'd sleep 12 hours and still wake up tired. Sometimes it came as quiet, not the peaceful kind, but the kind where you don't have the energy to fake a smile or carry a conversation. The more I let it speak, the more I realized something strange. My anger was losing its edge. I didn't snap as quickly. I didn't feel the need to control every interaction. I didn't walk into rooms already on the defensive. It wasn't because I was suddenly better. It was because I wasn't carrying that hidden grief alone anymore. But here's the thing. No one tells you about healing. When anger loses its edge, you don't just feel relief, you feel empty. And that emptiness, that's where the real battle begins. The first time I felt it, it scared me. Not grief, not anger, something worse, nothing. You'd think letting go of anger would feel like peace, like a long exhale you didn't know you were holding. But for me, it felt like being lost in a wide, empty room with no doors, no threats, but no warmth either. When I was angry, I at least knew who I was, the fighter, the one who could take a hit and still stand. Without it, I didn't know who to be. I wasn't the wall puncher anymore. I wasn't the one making people think twice before crossing me. I wasn't the strong one in my own head. And without that, I felt invisible. No one tells you that healing creates a vacuum. When the old patterns are gone, there's nothing to replace them yet. It's like tearing down a building but not having the new one built. You just stand in an empty lot, staring at rubble. That's where I was. I had stopped snapping at everyone. I had stopped using sarcasm to keep people at arm's length. I had even let people see me cry. But now I didn't know how to exist. That's the dangerous part of this stage. It's when the old habits start calling you back. Anger whispers, "You know me. You've survived with me. You don't have to figure anything out with me. I'll make you feel strong again." And it's tempting, because even though anger was toxic, it was familiar. I had to make a decision. Either let anger move back in or find something else to take its place. So I started experimenting with things I'd never let myself do before. Sitting in silence without a phone in my hand, journaling, even if what I wrote didn't make sense, calling people just to tell them I appreciated them, no agenda, no pretending, letting myself be bad at something new without quitting out of frustration. It was awkward at first. I felt like a beginner in my own life. But slowly, something strange happened. I started feeling pieces of myself I didn't even know I had lost. The boy who laughed too hard at dumb jokes, the man who enjoyed helping without keeping score, the part of me that didn't need to be feared to be respected. Here's what I didn't expect. The more I softened, the more the world around me didn't. People still tried to push my buttons. Life still threw curveballs. Some people mistook my gentleness for weakness. And one day, it happened. Someone came at me with the same disrespect that used to trigger me into a full-blown eruption. Only this time, I didn't explode. I didn't shut down. I didn't even raise my voice. I just looked at them. And in that quiet moment, I realized something terrifying. The fight in me wasn't gone. It had just changed targets. I wasn't fighting them anymore. I was fighting me, because part of me still wanted to go back to the safety of rage, back to the predictable script of hurt me and I'll hurt you back to the version of me that never had to feel this exposed. And in that moment, I understood something no therapist, book, or self-help quote had ever told me. Sometimes healing feels more dangerous than the wound ever did. That realization didn't just shake me, it left me with a question I wasn't sure I wanted to answer. A question that would change the way I saw every fight, every grudge, every person I'd ever hated. And that question is where the next chapter begins.